Prophet Muhammad a terrorist? This we will answer him in this video. 3 questions, through which we will learn the approach of the Prophet Muhammad. 1. Does the Prophet Muhammad call on Muslims to kill non-Muslims and attack them? 2. Does the Prophet Muhammad call for the killing of Christians and Jews, and the demolition of churches? 3. What is the position of the Prophet in dealing with captives of war, women and children in wars? The first question. It is common for a Muslim to kill a non-Muslim just because he is a non-Muslim. Let's see what the Holy Quran said about this matter. Verse 1. Prophet. Call the people to the way of your God with wisdom and goodly and kind exhortation, and argue with them in the most pleasant and best manner. Here God commands that the call of non-Muslims to Islam be through wisdom and good advice, not killing or forcing to convert to Islam. And in what other comes to confirm this meaning and say, Verse 2. Whoever killed a person, unless it is for a murder or for spreading mischief in the land, it would be as if he killed all humans. And whoever saves a life, it would be as though he saved the lives of all humans. He speaks here about the criminalization of killing any person without right or a corrupt act, and makes the matter that killing one person without right is a major crime equal to killing all people. Then when should a Muslim fight to see? God says in the Quran, Verse 3, and fight in the way of God the ones who fight you, but do not transgress. Surely God does not love the transgressors. The matter in Islam did not stop at this, but developed to place the first values in the history of humanity for the freedom of belief. See what the Quran says. Say, the truth is from your God. Let him who will believe, and let him who will reject. In other words, the truth from God is the freedom of man to believe or disbelieve in Islam. And God affirms that in the Quran when he said there is no compulsion of any sort in religion, meaning that it is not permissible to force a person into religion. It is not the right of a Muslim to force anyone to enter Islam, and God talked to the Prophet Muhammad and says to him, even if your God wills to make people a single nation and they are still, that is, God wanted to create different people, and if he wanted to make them one mother, to make them. Then God determined for the Prophet in the Quran a constitution that he adheres to in the way of the call to Islam, and says to him in the Quran, so remember that you are a reminder. You are not a ruler against them, that is. He tells the Prophet that he does not have to remind people of the God, and that he is just a reminder and a messenger, and that he does not control people, and that God is the one who will be held accountable in the hereafter and not him. So, according to the recitation that the Prophet Muhammad brought, he does not have to force anyone to convert to Islam, and this is the freedom of belief that we know now, and that fighting is nothing but self-defense against whoever fights a Muslim and expels a Muslim from his homeland. And we will mention a story of the Prophet Muhammad in which he applied all these orders from God when he conquered Mecca, but let us know its beginning. When the revelation from God came to the Prophet Muhammad and informed the people of Mecca that he was a prophet from God and that they should worship the one God who created everything and refrain from his idol worshippers, they tortured him and his companions, and those who believed with him, and stole their homes and their money, and expelled him from Mecca, he and his companions, to be forced to emigrate to many countries, where he was also expelled from the city of Taif and tortured them. But they settled in the city of Yathrib, and its people welcomed him, and the number of Muslims increased. The infidels were expecting that he would kill them and force them to convert to Islam after he had many believers with him. But what happened? Just this, he asked them, what do you think I'd do with you? So they answered, a decent man and a generous nephew, and he said to them, go, you are divorced, that is, the freedom. And no one was forced to convert to Islam, and he gave them safety, and he did that in implementation of Allah's orders to the Muslims in the Quran. Second question. The people of the book is a name given in Islam to the owners of the monotheistic religions that Islam recognizes. These religions are Judaism and Christianity, and the Prophet Muhammad affirmed their protection, saying, whoever harms a dhimmi has hurt me, and whoever hurts me has hurt God. Dhimma people are non-Muslim communities under Muslim rule and protection. Legal? There is an example of a Muslim who killed one of the Dhimma people, and the Prophet sentenced him to death. So what are the rights of Christians, Jews, or non-Muslims in general, in Islam? 1. Freedom of belief in Islam for non-Muslims. The Prophet says, leave them and what they believe, and they have what we have, and they have what we owe, that is, we leave them to believe in what they want to believe in, and they have the same rights and duties. 2. They are also subject to their own religious laws in all their dealings, such as marriage, divorce, and the like. And Islamic law is not imposed on them. An example of this is when the Prophet made an oath of opposition and peace to the Jews in Medina after the migration and approved them on their religion and money. 3. Performing acts of worship. Islamic law permits people of other religions to practice their religious rites and perform their rituals. It forbade confronting their places of worship during battles, but one of the purposes of the strife for the sake of God is preserving the places of worship for all religions. Omar bin al-Khattab to the people of Jerusalem when it was conquered. This is what Omar, the commander of the faithful, gave the people of Aliyah, Jerusalem, security. He gave them security for themselves, their churches and their crosses. Their churches are not inhabited, nor demolished, nor diminished by them, nor from their goodness, nor from their crucifixion, nor are they hated against their religion, and none of them are harmed. And when he wanted to pray, the priest told him to pray in the church. Caliph Umar refused, fearing that Muslims would believe it is permissible to convert churches into mosques. Another example, Amr ibn al-As, a companion of the Prophet Muhammad and the ruler of Egypt, pledged to the Egyptian Christians that Muslims would not harm their churches and interfere in Christian affairs. He also allowed the Jews to remain in Alexandria, enjoying the same conditions, for the right to own, trade, and exercise a normal life, as well as the Muslims' freedom to buy from Jews and Christians, as they are citizens like Muslims. They shall have the right to eat what they think is permissible, including a little intoxicating alcohol, eat pork, and be happy during their feasts and sanctities, and perform funerals and condolences and other occasions, and exchange congratulations on them. How to be tolerant is the slogan of Islam. The best testimony to Muslims' commitment to these principles are the successive historical testimonies recorded by Western and Eastern historians about Muslims' transcendence over forcing anyone, those under their authority, to convert to Islam. Thomas Arnold says, "We have not heard of any deliberate attempt to force non-Muslims to accept Islam, or of any organized persecution intended to eradicate the Christian religion." The Spanish thinker Blasco Ibáñez says in his book The Shadows of the Church, speaking of the Islamic conquest of Andalusia, "Spain has made a good reception for those men who came to it from the African continent, and the villages Islamized them. Its crisis without resistance or hostility? What is only if a constellation of Arab knights approached one villages, until the doors were opened and received a welcome. It was the battle of civilization, and it was not a conquest of conquest. In conquest, the sons of that civilization did not abandon the virtue of freedom of conscience for a long time, and it is the pillar on which every true greatness of the peoples is based, so they accepted in the cities that they owned the Christian churches and sailed the Jews. And the mosque was not afraid of the temples of the religions that preceded it, so it knew their rights, and settled next to them, not envious of them, nor desiring to rule over them." The English historian Sir Thomas Arnold says in his book The Call to Islam, "The victorious Muslims have treated the Arab Christians with great tolerance since the first century of immigration, and this tolerance has continued in the successive centuries. And we can rightly judge that the Christian tribes had embraced Islam out of choice and will free. And the Christian Arabs who live in our time among the Muslim communities are a testament to this tolerance." The German Orientalist Sigurd Hunk says, "The Arabs did not force the conquered peoples to enter Islam. The Christians, Zoroastrians, and Jews who met before Islam were the worst and most horrific examples of religious intolerance. To harm them with the slightest harm, or is this not the utmost tolerance? Where did history narrate such deeds? And when?" The third question. The Prophet Muhammad advised his companions to treat the captives of war well. He said, "Take good care of the prisoners of war." So, what are the rights of war prisoners in Islam? 1. Good treatment. 2. That they eat and drink what Muslims eat and drink, and not less than them. 3. He did not build a place for them to live in. Rather, he made them live in the houses of Muslims and in the mosque of Muslims, and he did that they didn't feel bad. He instructed the Muslims not to separate between the same family, so that the brother would live with his sister, father and mother in the same house as guests of the Muslim in one house, where the Prophet says, "Whoever differentiated between a mother and her son from among the captives, God differentiated between him and his loved ones on the day of resurrection." for he made them redeem themselves in exchange for each one of them teaching 10 Muslims to read and write. If he was not educated, he was released. 5. God granted kindness to the captives of war in one place, along with kindness to the orphan, indicating that kindness to the prisoner is a very good thing, and God loves him very much. And all of this was more than 1,000 years before international treaties in the Human Rights Code, and Dr. Amna Nasser, a professor at Al-Azhar University, affirmed that Islam forbids torture of prisoners, so we cannot torture them because they fought us. And she adds, among the prisoner's rights that Islam guaranteed to him is not to force him to leave his religion, and not be forced to enter in Islam, but called to Islam that is better. God Almighty says, O Prophet, tell those in the hands of the prisoners that God knows your heart's good and better than taking you and forgive you, and Allah is forgiving, merciful. That is, it is not permissible to force the captive to convert to Islam. How do the Prophet and Muslims deal with women and children in battles? The prohibition of representation in the body of the fighting enemies, and the prohibition of killing women, children, the elderly and the sick, and this mercy exceeded even inanimate objects. So the Prophet, upon him be blessings and peace, forbade killing animals or burning trees, and says that God does not love aggressors. I think after you saw the video, you can answer whether the Prophet Muhammad is a terrorist or not.